Hey guys, my name is Hashar, and in this video, I wanted to talk about being biased and the paradox behind being a biased person. Well, I think all of us are biased in some ways, but I'm not in the extremes, where I'm not an extreme rationalist or I'm not an extreme postmodernist. Or actually, I'm not a postmodernist. Well, there's a problem in both ends of the spectrum, and I wanted to talk about both ends here instead of trying to share my perspective on this. Now, when we talk about bias, well, we're trying to let me clear by definition of bias here. Now, depending on who you are, you might call this layer as psyche, as conscience, or a soul, or bias. Now, whichever side you belong to, these can be used interchangeably in some context. Okay, now obviously soul, you can understand soul as something that sort of is physical. For some people it's physical, for some people it's not physical, but whatever it is, it's sort of applicable to the word bias, and what, at least in the sense of what I'm going to argue in this video, you can apply the word soul, conscience, or psyche to this word. Now, what is exactly the paradox behind bias? Now, we have two kinds of extremes in this argument. You have the postmodernists who believe that everything is a matter of perspective, or everything is a matter of bias. And you have extreme rationalists, or people who have reductive thinking way, which is if you can reduce any concept, any element, or anything down to its bare essence, you can truly understand the nature of any element without any bias. You can, if you probe down any argument. Now, the thing behind the common element behind both extremes is that they believe that in order to truly understand the essence of any element, like for example, let's say this pencil, you have to get rid of your biases. Like you have to forget red represents danger, or white represents something, I don't know, green color represents something, so you have to get rid of your biases. Now, these biases, as both sides of the spectrum argue, they come from either your experiences, they are inherited, or they come from some things that you read, or you are educated, or you are enlightened. But regardless of which side you hold, there's that commonality. But what postmodernists believe is that it's almost impossible to get rid of your bias, because when you talk about bias, if you think about the postmodernist side of the perspective, let's say for example, robbery. Now, robbery, or being a thief. Now, what postmodernists say is that, okay, from one side of the perspective, if you look at robbery, you were taught from the get go that looking at robbery is like is wrong. Robbery is wrong because, well, if you have different reasons that you definitely debated from different sides of this. Like you were reasoned from a religious perspective, from maybe from a state's perspective, like from the government, or maybe from just general morality perspective, like the society's morality. But regardless of however you were educated, that's called bias, because what you're doing is you're only looking at robbery from one perspective. But what postmodernists are saying is that if you can get rid of that part, if you can sort of deconstruct that argument, then you can look at things from another perspective and say that robbery is justified if if he's suffering from extreme poverty. Now, that's a postmodern perspective. Now, there's the other side who believe that if you can take robbery down to its bare essence, you can truly understand whether robbery is correct or wrong. Because if you can reduce arguments down to its bare essence, just look at the basic component, and you can say, oh, this is the component, everybody sees the same thing. Now, you can make a judgment now because everybody sees the same argument, like the same thing, right? So I reduced the huge crystal down to its atom, so everybody sees the atom now, like assuming we get down to the atom. Okay, we reduced it down to the most fundamental atom, and everybody looks at this atom and says, "Oh, I think it's all bad." The extreme rationality side is that everybody will look at it and say that, look, this is rational. And what the postmodernists say is that, okay, the problem with looking at the atom is that you're looking at it through your biases. There, in the Islamic world, there was a scholar by the name of Ghazali. If you ever heard of him, I don't know from which book it is. I'm sorry, I can't quote which book or which part it is, but I'm going to paraphrase one of the things that he said, which is he actually had an experience where he looked at the moon. If I'm correct, it was the moon, yes, from a particular position, and he saw, okay, the moon is this big and that big, it's the size of the coin. Okay, but if you move and you make your study, you make your assumptions, you make hypotheses, and you do all that. But when you change your position, right, that's what's called a system. When you change your position, then what gives you the right to believe that whatever assumptions you held previously hold true anymore? Because that's the Ghazali sort of experience that he had, is that I'm only looking from one side of the perspective. What if I changed it? Now, this is where he gets a little postmodernist, but actually Ghazali was not exactly a postmodernist, because now I will talk about that in a completely different video, but because he had a change of heart, change of experience, and everything. But that was just one of his experiences. But that's a good example to demonstrate what both sides believe in. Now, at this time, I'm just presenting the different sides of the argument. I've not presented my side. Look, the thing is that it's almost very, very difficult for us to get rid of our conscience, okay? Because you can try to get rid of your conscience by going through different methods, okay? Like, for example, if you want to be like the pure being, you can get rid of your human tendencies, such as, because we have emotions. We are not purely rational. Like, for example, we look at the people we care about through, we care about people because most of the time they're not really rational. Like, it's not like, for example, morality is not dictated in the logic itself. Now, that's what I believe in. Like, for example, X happened, or X is related to Y. Now, if I kept telling you the concepts or even the fundamental truths, they don't dictate morality or what you should do with that fact. And at the same time, we're not purely based on emotions. Like, that's as problematic as saying, okay, if you're looking at this pen, everybody is looking at different things, but you're just operating in a particular loop. Like, that loop is based on some hypothesis. That's just not connected to this wider system. So you need to connect your assumptions to the wider system and you need to think in systems in order to truly understand how this relates to the thing and understand systems. And that's sort of my solution to this problem. But I will expand this on the latter part of this video. Now you can say, how do you know what to do with that? Now, the side of extreme rationality, or the sort of how may I call the atheist agnostic sort of argument, is that, okay, you can look at this side from a pure perspective if you can get rid of religion. Well, the problem with that is that, what religion, because not every religion is the same, obviously, but religion, as it is, serves the purpose of giving you what's called a way to navigate through this life using something called meaning. All right, so this might get a little weird or complex, but bear with me. Okay, so when we talk about meaning, what I mean is that in this life we have high moments and we have low moments. There are times when you feel extremely happy and there are times when you feel extremely low. Now there are different ideas, ideologies, religions and faiths and in philosophies that sort of try to teach you how to cope up with this. Now a lot of modern movies try to teach us, okay, well, the way to happiness is, well, when we say the word the path to happiness, it assumes that the ultimate destination that we all should pursue is happiness. Now in my opinion, I don't think that's going to ever happen, because none of us really want ultimate happiness in, like, I mean, not we all want happiness, but it's not like it like we're ever going to attain that, in my opinion. Because if you have not faced any problems, or if you have not faced any suffering, you inevitably will go through some trouble or problems. What you really want is a way to battle or gain perspective in whatever problems that you are facing, or whatever problems that you are working on. For example, let's say that you are let's say you are solving or working on fixing the financial stability or the financial nature of your family. Now, when you're creating a company, there are lots of problems you will undergo. Or, like, for example, people might cheat you. You lost all your money. Everything went under loss, and you have to reinvest everything. Or some people cheated you. Like, so many n number of things could go wrong. Now, the only thing that will hold your ground in these times of suffering is what's called as meaning. Now, the way, for example, some religions argue is, for example, let's say Buddhism. So when you talk about, I'm not a Buddhist, by the way. Okay, just to be clear. But in Buddhist mythology, or in the Buddhist idea, the norm is suffering. Okay, so the norm is that the 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 normal state is that you will always be in suffering. So happiness is just a state that you will attain out of experiences. But really, what every religion is trying to do is to give you a way to cope up with situations. Now, although I am not an atheist, now I am a Muslim myself, and the reason for it, and you can ask this question: well, in this modern world, really, why do you ever need a religion, and why is religion still relevant to you personally? Now, if you are a postmodernist, you can say that this is your matter of your perspective, or you can say this is an objective perspective. But regardless of how you look at it, now let me present how I see it. Okay, so the reason I believe, especially what I believe in, is still relevant is because it is incredibly complex to figure out how you're going to navigate in this world. Now, for example, the reason behind biases and the reason why it's so complex to create your own your own meaning is because your life is only limited to 70 years, 80 years in this time. Okay, you're going to meet with a set number of people. You'll experience a number. You'll only have a set number of experiences. You'll only go to set number of places, and you'll only see a number of things and people and whatever. So your life and your intellect and everything is so incredibly limited. But everything in this world, if you haven't subscribed to this channel already, please do, because I talk a lot about systems thinking in this channel. Now, in systems thinking, we understand that everything in this world is connected. Okay, sometimes it's connected negatively, sometimes they're related positively. Now, however they're connected, they are connected. But because they are connected, one of the things I want to understand, okay, so for example, if you take any phenomena, okay, uh, how does this make sense, or how does this fit in, or how can you create a stable environment given the nature of environment we have? How can you create a dynamic system that sort of clicks in? Okay, so I don't know if I'm sort of using the right words, but let me sort of rephrase this in a more, let's say, in a better way. Like, let me sort of rephrase this. So how can you create a system where whatever situation happens, you know how to act so that it creates a stable, or it creates um, a stable outcome in the long term for myself and for the people that I affect in the system of my interaction. For example, if I'm doing business with some person, and if I believe that I can create my own meaning through it, the problem is that if I interact with somebody, I need to know, okay, so if I'm going to meet this person, and if I'm going to say something that is, and if I'm going to, let's say, I'm going to tell a lie or whatever, and if I'm going to somehow, you know, get through this sort of project, or I'm going to tell a lie to my customer, and I'm going to get that sale done, then because I believe that, and postmodernists can criticize and say that this is a matter of your bias and your perspective. You just saw that, it's okay to tell a lie. But okay, so if you told a lie, you only told it based on the experiences you had. But you didn't say it based on any perspective. This is your own experiences that's sort of dictating it. But you can't really can you understand how limited your experiences are? So you can't really predict the outcome of this lie exactly, because yes, you can predict maybe your outcomes, but you can't predict what's going to happen to the other person, because you are affecting the system. And he is going to, for example, if you tell a lie, he's going to act on your lie, and he's going to affect other people as a result of your lie. So that's an example of why it's so complex to create your own meaning. And that's what I found Islam is sort of this balanced and a balanced idea that sort of, gives me a way to live in this world in a balanced way. Yes, now there are a lot of criticisms about, well, are you talking about Islamic law? Are you talking about Islam as in the radical Islam, whatever that is? I'm just a Muslim. I live in a democratic country. I live in a secular country, or at least it says so in the Constitution. So I am a Muslim. That's just straightforward as much as that. That said, I wanted to stop talking about that side. No, that can be a talk in a separate video. But the paradox of bias is that, there are times when you believe that you can create your own, path. But the system is so complex in this world. And that's why I say a lot of times in this channel that problems are incredibly complex, but solutions that people present is incredibly simple. Like, they are simple, obviously. You can only do one thing, okay, provided your problem. Now, the problems are complex because they have the variable is influenced by n number of other variables. So that's why the problems are complex, and that's why solutions are different to different problems in different situations, in different contexts. And that's why I'm talking about religion here in this context, because, well, that's one way you can sort of cope up with biases. Well, that's that about, when when you truly talk about psyche, or we talk about conscience or soul or bias, if you really want to look at it from a perspective of a true rational side, there's a video about systems thinking, and where I think I'll leave a link to that in the description of this video. You can go watch that out. Where he says, for example, take the picture of an elephant. Okay, if you broke down an elephant, and assuming that you don't know what elephant, if you have never seen an elephant. Now, yes, I'm operating in the loop of hypothesis. I understand that, but try to get my point. Take elephant. Okay, elephant is, you know what elephant looks like, right? So it has 4 legs. It's a huge animal. It has a trunk. Now, if you cut the part of the trunk, and if you show that to the tribal people who have never seen an elephant, they might guess it as snake, assuming they know what snake is. And the reason is because that's as far as you can, that's as far as your perspective can go, or that's as far as your experiences and your brain can go. And that's why you're limited, and that's why no matter how much you learn, you have to be humble, because you really, your life and your intellect is extremely limited to what you know, right? So, and you can only hold a limited or set amount of things. But you are incredibly sophisticated. That's a different thing. You can connect and all that. But you might guess the trunk as a snake, because maybe, it's a long trunk. You just cut the remaining part. But when you look at the whole picture, it's an elephant. It's not a trunk. It's not a monkey, or it's not a bed if you just cut off the top part of the elephant without the face. It's not any of those. If you take the face of the elephant without the trunk and without its body, and if you take the photo from the front, that looks kind of like a monkey. So you understand, right? So, so that's called that's a very, very, what do you call it? That's a very interesting argument, that the only way for us to truly understand, in my opinion, the world is if you can look at the world from a holistic lens. You can't make any arguments by reductive thinking, in my opinion. And that's the problem with reductive thinking, is that if you take any particular element, each and every element has complex relations with other elements. They all talk to each other. Now, unless you look at it holistically, and you don't have to look at just 2 other elements for that. It can be, sort of consistent with your idea. For example, let's say you take trunks and you take the legs. Maybe the legs is also a kind of a snake. But when you take the full elephant as a picture, then you realize it's not a snake. Right, so I don't know if I'm sort of making sense here, but if you watch that video, I think it'll be better clear. But that's it from my side. So that's the paradox of why I think all of us are that's the problem with calling other people as a biased person. I think every one of us are biased. I think a better way to look at it is how we perceive systems. I think if you can understand and figure out ways to balance your system out, that's a much better argument that we can have, because we can also discuss how we can act out in this world. I hope that's sort of interesting conversation to drive. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe to this channel, like this video, and I shall see you guys in another video very soon.